¿Ya estoy llamando?
Sí, ya estamos al aire. Muy buen mediodía, gracias, a todos.
Si no, no entras.
No. Muy buenos días a todos, muy buenos mediodías a todos.
Buen día a todos.
¿Cómo les va? Acá son la 1 del mediodía, saludamos a todos los que se están conectando. En el día de hoy vamos a entrevistar a Chrisse Harwanko, esta artista que participa junto a 35 artistas de 13 países del mundo del 5º Salón Internacional de Pintura en Menduina Schneider Art Gallery en Los Ángeles, San Pedro, California. Con Chrisse vamos a tener una entrevista en inglés porque Chrisse es norteamericana pero vive en Panamá.
Norteamericana, nacida en Delaware.
Sí.
Y que vive en Panamá.
Y que vive en Panamá. Bueno, para todos los que no conocen, Jorge Schneider.
Jorge, yo soy la otra mitad. Y Alejandra.
Mi esposo. Juntos somos los directores de Menduina Schneider Art Gallery. Vamos a esperar que Chrisse se conecte a las redes sociales y en ese momento la llamamos y comenzamos la entrevista.
Dale.
Mientras tanto, podemos ir contando que el 5º Salón Internacional de Pintura, en este caso por primera vez, es virtual, ya que, dada la pandemia del COVID-19, no pudimos hacerlo presencial como todos los años. En este momento, Chrisse se está conectando, así que la vamos a llamar, puesto para concretar la entrevista del día de hoy. Vamos a esperar unos minutitos que Chrisse se conecte.
Hi, Chrisse.
Hi, Chrisse. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Pretty good. We're really happy to have you. I'm George Schneider, Alejandra's husband.
Very nice to meet you.
And I'm so happy that I can do this interview with you.
Right.
We're just going to talk about basically the way you work, why you work the way you do, and all the things that inspire your work, which I find it really compelling. So Alejandra is going to ask you some of the first questions, and then we take it from there. Is that okay?
Okay, sure. And first of all, I do want to say thank you so much for including me, first of all, in the show, and also the interviews that I've been listening to. You all are putting out so much effort and so much love. And Alejandra, when she was we're talking about the other day, talking about all the other artists together, I was like, oh, my heart was just filling up with so much joy and wonderful energy from her. Yeah. They've been wonderful.
Yeah, the gallery is a labor of love. I mean, no, I'm a writer. I used to collect art. She's a painter. As all collectors, I ended up marrying the painter. That's what we do. The gallery, we open it because it's our passion and it's a way of life for us. And to have a chance to meet so many wonderful artists and to be enriched by all these artists, I think is one of the best things that happen to somebody in life, because art is something that comes unfiltered, from the well of creativity to the real world. So thank you so much, and I'm so happy. I met your work online. Hopefully I can see it live one day, because when you see it live, you can see the emotion of the artist, the way the hand move, and why there was a brushstroke that went that way and not the other way. You know all that, artists. So, but it's due to the pandemic that we have. It's the best we can do. That's why it's virtual. But as Antoine de Saint-Exupéry used to say, machines don't take you away from humanity, but they plunge you deeper into the problems of humanity. So we're using, a digital age to talk about humanity through art, basically. So thank you.
Exactly. Yeah, with the pandemic, we all the creative people, the people that are able to create with books or music or whatever, we have a lot more time because we are not involved with all the other things,
Yes.
And for me, it's been quite a blessing in many respects. I got to know myself more. I got to know what I really want to define, really what I want to say. I did a Deepak Chopra meditation just right at the beginning, right before this whole thing happened. It was a 21-day abundance meditation. And one of the things that happened was we talked about abundance and abundance in our lives. And the one thing that really stood out with me was nature. You know, I have chills right now from my hands down to my feet, thinking about how much nature I have been bestowed in my lifetime, you know, from a little kid till now. You know, it's that's what, and that's why I'm thinking, well, why is it my compulsion, you know, to go in the ocean, to go on my hikes, you know, and it's that, you know, I want to share that, you know, I want to share that with people. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you now that we're touching on this about nature and your passion with nature. I know you're a scuba diver.
Oh, yeah.
Passions. And also you do underwater photography.
Right.
What I was trying to say is, for me, we live in a rational world, right? Which is what we see, what we walk, the mountains, the roads, the car, the house. But the water, to me, when I go into the ocean and I plunge deep into the ocean, I go into the subconscious, if I had to equate it to our life. So my question is, for your art, which I found that it comes from the minor things to become universal of a world that we haven't seen, and you brought forward and we can see it. Is it a rational creation when you paint it? Is it a intuition? Is it subconscious? What image do you paint? I mean, do you take a photo, underwater, and then you paint it, or this come from memory? I mean, if you can give us kind of an idea of how your creative process work, I mean, that would be ideal.
Well, my paintings, and it's something in this realization, you know, with what's happening with me during this period that we've been so enclosed for 6 months here in Panama, is that the realization that it's the whole enchilada, really. You know?
Yeah.
You know, it's partly it's the sound, you know, I live right in front of the ocean. So, you know, I ask myself, why am I always having the flow of waves in my painting? It's like the sounds are subconsciously in there. They're moving forward, you know, all the time. When I go and I scuba dive, most of the time I take my camera down and I take lots of pictures. I don't know whether you've been able to see some of my albums or not, but I've got, you know, many since 1985. I've been taking pictures, and those pictures I don't want to reproduce, you know, realistically. Okay. They're a part of me, a part of my consciousness. And I really feel like I would like to show people in a poetic way, in an abstract way, but with a little bit of realism, what the underworld is like. So it's like my spirit, you know, my actual spirit is showing there, hopefully on the canvas, part in realism, part in abstract, so that people can kind of interpret the way they would like to, you know. I have a tendency of hiding little animals or putting parts of animals, and part of that goes into the ecology part of my mind. I have a deep passion for Mother Earth and Mother Sea, and I really feel that it's super important for all of us to be very conscious of what we are doing on a day-to-day basis, you know, and it's affecting the sea. I've been diving for 45 years, and it's a long time, and since almost as long with a camera underwater. So I have seen so much change underwater, particularly in the Caribbean side here in Panama, where the reefs were, you know, just drop dead gorgeous, you know, and now with the fishing, the long lines and all that business that they just let go here, you know, it's like, okay, they're allowing this, and the fish are going away, you know, we don't have that. So my intention with my paintings is to bring to light, to make people realize, you know, that we really do need to have an awareness of what we do day to day, the recycling, the cleaning of the beaches, you know, support the agents, the communities, the organizations that do help in a broader way than we can as individuals. You know, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, because the way I see it, the way you work is, you're basically uniting everything. I mean, you're making us part of the oceans, not something that is detached from the oceans, but we are part of basically the same origin, which is stardust. I mean, we were created, or we were, you know, in a big bang, or whatever you want to call it, we all came from the same source. But somehow our civilized life cannot separate nature itself from the way we are supposed to behave and work and build our cities. Everything removes us from the source. And what is so inspiring from you is that you bring that and you take it out of the ocean without harming the ocean.
Yeah.
You put it on a canvas, and then we see it, and we are in the ocean. So in a sense, it's kind of a circle. I love Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, for instance. And you remind me a little of the old story of John and the well. I mean, you go to the well, and then you find in the well of your own creativity what you want to say, you bring it forth and you bring it to the world. And then we know about that because you had the courage to go and do that.
Right.
And that's what's so fascinating about your work.
Oh, thank you.
So,
Yeah, it's really also the methodology that I use. I love watercolor, and you can see in a lot of my backgrounds, I use like the wet on wet watercolor techniques. And I love the fluidity of that media, you know, but I use acrylics, you know, so that, you know, they will be, you know, permanent in there, and use gels and everything so they're solidified. But, you know, there's a fluidity when I start. You asked me, you know, when I actually start, what do I, you know, what are my thinkings? But the actual physical part of it, the actual manual part of it, you know, I'll take my paints in tubes. They've got a certain solution I make up, and I'll apply it to the canvas, big areas, and then I don't use a brush the first whole day, the first 5 or 6 hours. I'm moving it with my fingers. I'm moving with spatulas. I'm moving it with all kinds of different materials other than the brush, you know, so that I can show the fluidity of the ocean. I can move the paint, it's in motion. And that's where part of the, you know, part of the wave action comes from too, you know, moving all that.
It's sort of like the ocean. You get out of the ocean, you bring all that moisture into the canvas or the surface, whichever surface you might be working on, and you make it organic by touching it, you know, with your fingers, with your hand.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask you also is, I know you basically do painting. Is there any reason why you choose painting over other mediums like sculpting or other way of art? I mean, there is something about painting that is so appealing and alluring to you that you have to do it?
Well, you know, when I was in college at the University of Delaware, I took probably more courses in photography than I did in painting, but almost as many. So those were my two big loves in the art field. I had a Colombian teacher, a Colombian painter, Julio de Cuna, who listened to classical music in class, and we that's when I first started painting, you know, when I was 19, 20 years old, you know, and I loved the idea of listening to the music, the classical music, and producing, you know, something from the heart. You know? It was pretty interesting. So I guess the introduction, you know, of that at that point, when I was in younger years, I didn't paint. I did more like designing and I did leather work. I don't know whether you remember the old hippie times where everybody was making, you know, making leather earrings and necklaces and all that, you know. So that's what I worked more with that. But when I got to college, that's when I fell in love with painting. And then in the 79, 80, I started working with batik. And I had a teacher in Clayton, Panama, and she taught me incredible techniques. And I did batiks since, you know, all the way up until I went to Japan. I don't know whether you know, I lived in Japan for 14 years. And when I went to Japan, I didn't have the space, you know, how Japan is. There's little space where you live in. And so in Japan, I decided I was going to continue doing the batiks, but I was going to do them on paper. And I was going to do, so I did black and white batiks on paper. I took out the wax and then I painted on top. So that was kind of like a very unusual technique for there and for, you know, my group that I was with. Nobody else did that. But it was very, very interesting to, you know, to make that transition, you know.
I want to ask you about Japan. Because I know in Japanese painting is very important what is not painted. Sometimes the empty spaces are really, really important. So for you as an artist, and you know, I always say that you get to the east going west and you get to the west going east because everything's a circle. But at one point, both points collide. So what was the pivotal point, basically, in which you were able to unify those two different philosophies of painting and seeing the world, because it's different. And in which way that helped you to grow as an artist, to have been in Japan and Panama? I mean, it's really, you know, opposite. So
very diverse. I have been so blessed to live in three really distinct cultures.
Yeah.
The U.S. culture, the Japan culture, and the Panama culture. More in Panama than any other time. I've been in Panama now 38 years. But one string that went from Panama to Japan was my love of culture. When I was here in Panama, I did paintings of the Wakas and of the Indians and all that. And so that when I went to Japan, my themes got carried there, but not the Panamanian ones. Except one, I did continue doing the potes, you know, all the different pots. I took the Mizugame pots and I did those over there too. And I always did the sea. I always, you know, I've always lived close to the sea. So the sea theme came, but the cultural thing, I have a minor in anthropology. So from the University of Delaware. So my love of culture, you know, was embedded. Now, when I left Japan 8 years ago, I decided I really wanted to focus on one thing. I really wanted to focus on just the ocean, you know, and not get into everything, just to focus and really get into it. And I'm glad that I have. But now I have the need to branch out a little tiny bit. And my new series is going to be called Mar y Tierra.
Mar y Tierra, okay.
Okay, and so it's going to be like more with vegetation, trees, plants, flowers, but I can't leave the ocean, so I might have like a little fish in there or a little coral, you know, just to kind of mix it up. I remember when I was in Panama before in the 90s, I did some pottery pieces, and I had, you know, the pottery was in one area, and then I had like a border, and I had fish with the pottery, you know, which was very unusual. That piece just sold right away. The kind of mixing, the blending of the themes is what I'm kind of after. There's a lot really in the ocean, the forms. There's a lot of forms that are similar in the ocean and on land. The trees, the corals, the flowers, the organic forms that are there, you know, and I thought, wow, you know, it would be an easy transition, but I'm just so excited about these last few pieces that I'm doing it with my ocean pieces that I haven't been able to to really get into the next series, but I'm going to do it.
You will. That's part of growing as an artist too. But what I found it very interesting is something that you said. You're always going to have a little hint of the ocean, and I think that's really important because the earth always touches the ocean. I mean, land always ends in the ocean, and the ocean always ends in land. And still, you can make a case that the water basically is the arteries and the veins of the land because it gives us the rivers and the ponds and the lakes and the creeks. So they're always intertwined, and without one, the other one wouldn't exist.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
That you're capable of doing that, but and I say this again, I see many people paint in the ocean, and usually they paint what I see. But with you, you paint what I don't see, and it's out to the ocean. That's the biggest gift that you have, because and that goes beyond virtuosity. I'm just talking not the academics, but the message itself. And what I see when I see your painting is that you cannot just lay all the cards on the table. This is what I see. This is the open soul, and that's my vision. And that's a very intimate moment that somebody has when they're in front of a work of art, right? I mean, it's a door that opens up into the soul of a person. Whereas somebody who just has virtuosity but doesn't get the message and gives me the same thing I see an academic genius, but not an artist. And I guess you have combined both really, really well. So that's...
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's I see your art. So I'm really eager to see what you're gonna do with land and water. Put them all together and see how those two intertwine and what the message is there. So, do you have any kind of advance into that? I mean, you're gonna do water from the ocean perspective, or it's gonna be from a lake perspective too, or from a river on land, because they have a different way of moving the waters, right? And whether in the ocean or, which is the rhythm of us too, because we're mostly liquid too. So
exactly, probably more ocean and wave oriented, and or maybe perhaps like a lot more of the leaves and the land vegetation intermixed with some sea objects, something like that. I'm also a very big hiker. Yesterday, I was able to go up to the mountains. It was really one of our first only days that we've been able to go out for a whole day, pandemic. And I had just the most amazing time, just being out in the woods, in the jungle. You know, it fills my soul. You know, it just really fills me to be there. You know. Listening to the birds and listening to the crickets and we were in a watercress field, a farm walking through in some areas. And so a lot of our hikes have, this one didn't, but a lot of our hikes do have waterfalls. So that might be something I might incorporate, you know, in the future, you know. There's so many bodies of water for sure, you know.
But
I'm a gardener also, and I love flowers. I was able to get to a nursery yesterday and just see all these incredible flowers and beautiful flowers, and that's what I want to start sketching in pencil, you know, so that I can get a more fluid motion of it when I'm painting. I have got some absolutely stunning flowers in my garden, and I'm blessed. I'm really blessed with what I have, the ocean and the garden and everything.
I get what you're saying, because some 20 years ago, I went to a place called Parismina in Costa Rica, and I went to save the turtles with the United Nations, and we had to patrol the beach and all that, just get the eggs and hide it somewhere else so the poachers wouldn't get it and all that. But I remember every evening, as you were walking out from a little town, a little hamlet, a little 3 huts and a little dirt road, something like that, to the beach. I mean, everything started singing like a symphony. You know, the crickets and the frogs, and it was in a unity that it was a, you know, it had to be composed or directed by something, which is life itself. So I can see why you're so attracted to, you know, all the things that have their own rhythm, their own sounds, which unfortunately our world take us away from that. And I guess we teach that in school enough. I mean, we teach everything in an abstract way. You know, the ocean is there, and a kid that lives in Kentucky maybe never went to the ocean. Or a kid that lives, you know, in the Sahara never saw a waterfall, for instance. So again, the connection that you have with that, and the fact that you have traveled, but not traveled to certain places, but very different cultures, and came out of those places with one reality, which is human being, planet Earth. We're all the same, right? It's something that makes us wholesome when we see the painting. I don't get tired of saying this because, you know, it's like when I see your paintings, when I see a tree and I see the breeze, you know, and it's kind of caressing the leaf, you know, and they start rustling, that noise. The same way you have it in the water. You know, when you see the algae and you see the coral reef and they move and they come and they go. And that's something that you actually do so well that it has to be shown. And I'm so happy that you show this too, and that you can do it in a way that I think everybody is universal because of all the different cultures in which you live. So exactly. that's just fantastic.
Yeah.
I really, your words are just filling my head with such joy, Thank you so much. You know, it's my great pleasure when people can interpret my work as you have, because it's really such a deep part of my spirit to be able to show what I see in the ocean. But also in like a poetic way, you know, not realistically. I mean, I look at paintings that are realistic in the ocean, and I can appreciate them, but that's not me. You know, I like to put in the abstract so that people can interpret, you know, and sometimes, you know, someone's looking at my painting and they'll say, oh, that looks like an octopus, and or that looks like so-and-so fish. And I think, oh, I didn't see that, you know, and it's like their interpretation, you know, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful because the mind starts to meditate and flow into another realm, you know, and to me, the process is very intuitive at the beginning. It's very meditative. You know, I might spend like 5-6 hours on the first day, you know, just moving the paints. And then the next day when things are dry, because it really, after that point, because the paint is thick and has to dry, for, you know, the first, after that, then I go in and look for details. And sometimes I don't like what I painted. And, you know, I'll go and sand it down and reapply, sometimes again with the tubes, the actual containers that I make up the paint. So I start over a section over again. So that's part of my method. Definitely.
Yeah, if I can ask this too. When you paint, you know where you're going to start, or you have an idea, but do you know where you're going to end up, or the painting takes you there? Because you talk about intuition, and sometimes intuition, you know, it's free. We gotta let go, and then, you know, it tells us what intuition wants to do itself. So how do you know the ending, or sometimes you're surprised about the ending that you go, wow, I didn't think of this. Oh yeah,
definitely. But I do start out, I'll start out and I'll decide a composition, whether I want to move from left to right, whether I want to go do more of a straight across composition, and I'll do a light pencil sketching. Maybe 50% I'll follow, because, you know, the flow is there, and I don't stay with it. But I at least have, an idea where I want to start the painting, which area I might want to leave for the background. And definitely, the painting takes me with it, the flow of it. And at the end, I might have a general composition of where I started, but the paints, the colors, the mixing of the paints, they all change and they all move as I move through the painting, the weeks or days, that I'm with it. Yeah.
Because my question also is geared to this. I mean, to me, sometimes when I look at work of art, I look at it in the morning and I see some colors. I look at it in the afternoon and the light changes and I see a different color. I look at it completely different. One day I'm a little down and it's more melancholic. One day I'm happy and it becomes euphoric. When you paint, how do you feel your emotions and the light of day affecting your painting? For instance, what I'm trying to say, if you're gonna paint something and you're in a good mood, and you paint it in the morning, do you keep painting that work at the same time and while you're in the same mood, or you have different flows and different times of the day and everything mixes?
I generally like to I live on a fairly big property and I've got lots of responsibilities. And I am very much a person who is into yoga and exercise and everything. I like to get all of that done in the morning.
Okay.
And have a nice lunch and go out in the afternoon. So I generally have the same kind of light during, on my paintings. Now, what does affect it is this time of year. We are in invierno here, in the rainy season. Yeah. So today, it was like, we had like about 20-mile-an-hour winds, and I was thinking, why, if they asked me to go out to my studio, I mean, the studio might be all blown around. But so when days are that stormy, I don't go out, when the rain is blowing. But I generally have the same light, I use the same, I have the same light coming in. It might be a little bit darker depending on, whether it's a rainy day or cloudy day. It doesn't, I go out, with a lot of joy. A lot of times I'll go out right after I do actually meditate. Yeah. I go and light up my chakra sometime, or get into my orange root chakra, creative chakra, just to pause, to say, I want you to open up and let's put it out there, For me, that's important, to have that inner light as the beam, rather than the outer light, that I might receive from God, from the world, from the universe. Yeah.
And what about your personal moods? Like, for instance, it happens to all of us. I mean, we woke up and we are irritable, in a bad mood, just I don't know why, because I woke up and I don't know, it was the day to be irritated by something. Or sometimes, somebody pissed you off. So how do you kind of deal with those two things? If you were going to paint and then you have some kind of exchange with somebody, or a letter or something that bothers you or disrupts that particular peaceful setting that you have within you to paint. Do you still go and paint, or you walk back and you empty your thoughts and then you do it again? I mean, how do you do it as an artist?
I mean, actually, that happened just this week, with somebody here at the house who was being a worker here. And I had to blow off the energy, but I was able to continue to paint. I was able to continue. I got in my bubble, and I just painted. I mean, I can block it out. I can take the energy in and then I can let it go. I think that's part of the benefits of actually meditating and actually knowing yourself and being able to say, okay, there's this energy out there. It's there. I see it. I acknowledge it. I don't want it. Take a box and put it in the box and lock it and put it away, because it's an important thing for me to you know, to be able to do that. In the mornings, it's very rare for me to wake up grumpy, you know. Maybe if I've not had a good sleep, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm especially living where I'm living. I live alone. I do have workers and people coming in, but you know, I'm a happy person. People call me very positive, you know, and I think for painting, you have to have that. For me, the way I look at it is, I have to be in a positive mood. I have to be able to see the steps, the visions, the movement, the textures, everything that's involved with the painting. And I'm not gonna be able to do that if I'm, you know, like in Miss Grumpy, you know. So
what do you are you listening to me? Because we cannot because you just froze a little bit, and the sound was okay, but your image froze.
Okay.
What I find it really interesting for anybody that is thinking about doing something that wants to show to the world what they're doing, whether it's literature or music or painting or visual arts or fine arts, is that, for what you said, you don't shield yourself from the problems, but you know how to deal and cope with the problems and remove it so that they don't affect you. And that is really important, because that experience is going to give you something that once you recycle that into something good, it's going to show in the painting. Whereas if you shield, you'll never show that, and then your art will have certain shortcomings. I mean, it won't be a mature work of art. So, So do you think, and this is the question, do you think it's really important, you know, I know the answer where I'm going, but I just wanted to say, but for an artist or for any creative person to really embrace meditation, or whichever form helps you know yourself and the world and become one with everything that surrounds you, do you think everybody should have something of a ritual, whatever that might be, before painting, so that it can clear everything and let out this creative force being like a river and flow and just take everything with it, and there you have your masterpiece or your work of art?
Well, I can't say what is good for other people, but, you know, I know what's good for me. And I know that I agree with you. You know, I mean, it would be a river of mud, you know. I would be painting with grays and dark greens and all those colors, but the al contrario, I'm painting, well, bright reds and bright oranges and bright turquoises. I mean, those are colors that, you know, really make my soul sing, you know. And and colors. I mean, even working with colors, you know, I think can help a spirit, you know. For me, I use some pure colors, but you know, some of them I mix too. And I think for me, the ocean colors are really important part of my palette. But lately, I've tried some different combinations, and you know, as an artist and growing in the growth realm, I think that's important too, to try different things. Yeah. So.
Wow. And, you know, talking about colors, we can talk about synesthesia, you know, the philosophy of seeing life through colors, or thinking by colors. For instance, for me, sometimes I think in colors, you know. If I get really happy, it might be green, you know, and if I get upset, it's all red, and I want to run through a wall and go right through it. But when you, as you already did the sketch, the little sketch that you do that is not perfect, but it gives you a kind of a guiding route where you can go. Do you see in colors as you're painting? Do you see, or do you see more in shapes? You know what I'm saying, right? When you paint, do you think more in terms of colors or shape, or you go just blue there and the blue goes there? I understand, well, this I don't know, rectangle, or this a circle, I'm gonna do it blue, but it's just that the color that comes first. That's my question.
Well, that's a very good question, and I was just thinking about that the other day when I started a new painting. when I start, it's color. It's the colors and how they're mixing, and when I first put them down. But then as I start to move the paint with the spatulas that I have and other tools that I have, then I start thinking about the shapes, you know. And then after I work with it 3 or 4 or 5, 6 hours, whenever it is after the first day, then I'm going back to, also to looking at shapes and what I want to portray, you know, a little bit more detail. You know, when you work, I have to work a lot flat. So one of the things I have to do, you know how everybody has to move back from a painting? You can be up front and everything looks great, you know, but you have to move back really to see the impact, or take a picture of it. Taking a picture of it is really helps me too. But one of the things that I've learned that I can use is a ladder. Because my painting is flat, you know, I have to look at it from a distance. I can't all of a sudden lift it up, otherwise it'll just drip down, you know. So I have to climb a ladder to look down on what I have, you know. So that's a tool that I use sometimes. Yeah.
You kind of remind me of Robin Williams in Dead Poets Society when he tells all the students to jump on the desk and see on top of the desk, you know, everything changes. And going that route, we're talking about basically the way we see from different perspectives, right? So when you decide to paint something that you saw in the ocean, do you take, is that a memory, or you take some photos or 3 or 4 different photos of the same spot but from different perspectives, and then you choose one? Or is that a memory that you have?
It's more of a memory, you know. I think it's the ocean part, the scuba diving, the underwater photography becomes like a mood, a subconsciousness for me, you know, when I'm painting, because I don't actually look at one of my photographs and paint part of it, you know. It becomes the spirit, the mood, the feeling that I have, you know. A lot of my paintings have that movement, and especially the one that, you know, that's in the show, the Trip Salon show, you know. It has a lot of movement going from the left to the right, and that flow, you know, when you're in the ocean sometimes. One of the thrilling things for me, scuba diving, are currents. You know, people, some beginning divers think I'm crazy, but, you know, to be in a current where you're just whooshed away, you know, you are part of the current, part of the flow. It's an amazing thing, because you're one of the fish, you're one of the animals that are in there, that are being taken by the arms of Mother Sea and moved, you know. And the fish, the schools, everything that you see when you're in the water, you know, and a lot of times you can't even take pictures, you know, because you know, you have to be stiller when you take the pictures. Sometimes a video, but it's an amazing thing. Yeah.
And when you talk about the currents, because that's something I see on your paintings too. The bottom of the painting has a different movement than the top of the painting or the middle of the painting. I don't know much in terms of scientific study of the ocean, but I feel that there are different currents at different depths. I mean, you know, the current is going to be different when you're like 1 meter down, or, you know, 50 meters down, and things like that. And so will be the fish that swim in those different layers, right? So that's something that you have accomplished in your paintings too, because that movement is there. It's not just one monochord movement, you know, that it's just one and the wall is the same. But it's intertwined, and yet it's different.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they live together in harmony. You know, like it has layers. I go this way, and I go this way here, I go that way there, and that's fine.
That's so true in the ocean with diving. You might have, like, I remember when I was in Japan, one of the first dives that we did on a Thanksgiving weekend, the seas were like 10-foot seas, you
Okay.
know, and we were going out diving, and then the people said, we can't dive here, we've got to turn around. So we got in an area, and it was still pretty choppy, but once we got down, it was at calm. And so you have the currents are very much like that. You know, they sometimes it's really rough on the top, and you go down and there's nothing. So it's, you know, it varies. It varies a lot. Yeah.
And that's again one more accomplishment on your paintings too. That, you know, it's like life itself. I mean, we can have all this current and all this debris coming our way, but within us, it has to be something that it never moves. You know, like Joseph Campbell used to say, you know, it's wherever you're in the center of the world. That's the center of the world. You're always inside the circle.
Yes.
You show that in the ocean too. I mean, I look at the painting and they have different movements, different currents, and yet nothing is out of line. Nothing is why that is going that other way when nothing is going there. Everything kind of has its perfect symmetry and movement. So that's actually really, really nice. So.
And then there has to always be a grounding point, you know. There's a lot of movement in my paintings, but there's got to be a point where you can look at it and fixate at it, and there's the stillness. So you have the contrast of the movement and the stillness. You have the contrast of lots of activity, and then the backgrounds too, where the eye can rest a little bit, you know. And I go back and forth with my backgrounds a little bit. Sometimes I really want to go and do a lot in the background, but then sometimes, you know, it might be a more peaceful mood or something, you know, when I'm working on it, and I have a little bit less going on, you know. It depends on the piece. I said, you know, so I guess moods do flow through, you know, but for me, they're positive moods, you know.
Absolutely.
You know, the interesting thing that I see too is that you seem to capture the intangible. What I call intangible. When you're in the ocean, the water doesn't really move, but the waves do. It's energy that moves.
Yes.
In your paintings, you can see that by the way, you know, you move your hand when you paint, how the energy goes one way and exits the other way. And so when you talk about in the ocean that something is still, what are you referring that is still? Because everything moves. Of course, the seafloor itself won't move, but what's on top of it, it moves with the current. So when you look at the bottom of the sea, well, I don't know if you want to the bottom of the sea, but I'm kind of shallow. I'm not talking about Jacques Cousteau. But when you see something and you want to capture that stillness, you yourself become still, or you can capture that stillness while you're moving.
Well, what I was trying to say was in a painting, there's the juxtaposition of the heavy movement that goes on, the wave movement, and then there's also, you know, the corals. You know, there's lots of things in the ocean that don't move, like the hard corals, the sand, the bottom, you know, and fish that are like frozen and looking at, you know.
True.
That's what I meant by there's that the movement and the stillness, you know, in there.
Chrissy, you know, Instagram have only 50 minutes for the interview, and we have 50 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but you know, this conversation is really, really amazing. Thank you a lot for that.
Hopefully it's a beginning, and you know, we can build from here, because it's really interesting. Not only the art, but you seem a wonderful person too, and we're so happy that you decided to show your work with us, and so you're always welcome, and we stay in touch.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Oh.
Yeah, what a nice water here. So,
thank you so much for this opportunity, and to be with such talented people, you know, and your work, both of you, your works are just amazing also. congratulations on your own works too. You know, they're just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. My love, my deep love for you and for your love of the arts and for helping all of us in all our pasitos forward. You know, in a lot of us are not showing in the United States and would love to show. And so if there's ever an opening, just let me know.
Yeah.
Yep.
And thank you for being so creative in such a nihilistic world. You know, we need more creative people because now this is the age in which we destroy everything. So if people can go and create and recreate, that gives hope to humanity as a whole. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you again. Thank you again, Chrissy. And thank you to Alejandra Malvicino. She was connected with you for safe parts of the 5th International Salon of Painting, and all people to join us today for this interview.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
We'll see you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Chrissy.
Bye-bye.
And thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.